Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric and a continuing series, the Unported Playlist, where I take a look at some of my favorite unported arcade games of all time. And today we have Avengers and Galactic Storm, a fighting game released by Data East. This is a B-tier fighting game. It is not spectacular, but I love it for all the wrong reasons, and I'll tell you why. But before we get too far involved, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. Captain America is a member. Are you? It doesn't really matter if you join or not. Just do it or don't. I don't care. But honestly, this game is not a great fighting game. But I love it because I remember this cab in my local arcade, the Dream Machine, as a kid. It was on the floor for maybe like a month or two, and I played a ton of it. And here's the thing, I'm not even a big Marvel fan. Honestly, half these characters, I do not know who they are. If you want to leave me a comment down below when I ask questions about Marvel, answering them, go ahead. I could have researched this, but it's more funny for me just to tell you how I remember things. But in the story mode, it's a 1 versus 1 fighting game, but it also feels a little bit more like a boss rush beat 'em up at the same time. And if you believe the internet, I do sometimes I don't, this was the first fighting game that had quote-unquote helper characters where you can summon somebody in the background to attack your foe for you for a moment in time. But I love how this game looks, and I loved how it looked as a kid, because I remember really enjoying Killer Instinct, and this has the same sort of CGI pre-rendered graphics going on. The backgrounds are ever so slightly flat. I wish there was more going on in them, but visually for its time and place, Data East did a great job of making an awesome looking fighting game. And the fighting mechanics are not bad. It's just that the moveset's limited, and this game becomes incredibly cheap as the levels go on, and I will show you shortly what I mean. But if you want a new 2D fighting game that you've never played before, if you're thinking about just trying to pick something new up and check it out for fun, you could do a lot worse than Avengers in Galactic Storm. And you will see there that that dude flies in from the right, and that's part of the helper attack, and that was something new, and I remember that in arcades. I had never seen that before, even though mostly I just ended up playing a lot of King of Fighters at my local arcade. That was my favorite series back then, and it is still now. But this game gives you a ton of story as well. It almost feels like it was intended to be brought home maybe to the PlayStation 1 or Sega Saturn later on, even though those consoles probably didn't exist when this game was concepted. But you could see this as something that could have gotten a port, I feel like, on the Sega Saturn. But as we move on, I will say that all of a sudden the AI seems to be able to block pretty much every attack you throw at it, and that's why it feels a little bit more like a beat 'em up in the story mode than it does an actual fighting game, because it seems like they have a counter for absolutely everything, and you need to be a little bit cheap and kind of exploit their AI to bait them out to take an attack here or there. And you can tell that they knew the game was hard when they were making it at Data East, because when you continue, your opponent's life bar stays where it was. It's not like a fighting game where you need to fight them a second time with a full health bar and continue to do it until you finally get it right. So I think in that instance, they knew that they made this game to munch quarters. They were trying to compel you to continue playing, because what's another 50 cents if you only need to hit your opponent 1 or 2 more times to see the next level. But it's just a fun game. It's quirky. Data East made great games. This is not one of their top tier ones, but I always love checking out what they do, and I really do appreciate that we do get a lot of story for a fighting game, because fighting games usually have very minimal story. This one actually has a lot. But as good as this game looks for its time and place, and as decent as it plays, this actually has a really awesome soundtrack, so go ahead and enjoy it for like 45 seconds, and I'll come back and talk more about the game.
Meteorite!
I'm really into the soundtrack. It just has all those superhero vibes going on, and you'll see here that when you die, you can just completely change characters mid-fight, and that's why I say this feels more like the boss mode for just a beat 'em up than it does a traditional 1 versus 1 fighting game. But when you beat the game, or if you start just versus mode at the beginning, it plays exactly like a traditional beat 'em up. So there's kind of actually like 2 different versions of this game in one. Unfortunately, in story mode, you only can select one of 4 characters and one of 4 helpers, but in versus mode you get the entire roster opened up to you. But now that we're getting close to the end of the game, all of a sudden things are going to get very difficult. Now you're going to make fun of me. I have no idea what that potato is in the background. I think it's just a talking potato. It kind of looks like it has potato roots. So leave me a comment down below and tell me how bad of a video game nerd I am by not knowing who that character is. I'm sure you're listening to me right now and being like, how the hell do you not know that is Russet Potato? That's what I'm calling him from now on, and that's going to work for me. What you'll see here, now suddenly, the game just becomes incredibly predictive. He is grabbing me out of mid-air with those grapple attacks almost instantaneous. It seems like it's almost not supposed to happen this way. As far as cheap arcade games that I've talked about on Unported Playlist, once you get past the midway point of Avengers and Galactic Storm, this may be the cheapest game I've ever played. And as far as the fighting game is concerned, this is probably top 3 cheapest in my opinion. But I'm not putting quarters into it, so what do I genuinely really care about the cheapness? I'm here to see the ending. I'm here to check the game out and play it. Would I buy an original PCB for Avengers and Galactic Storm? No, I would not. Would I emulate it like I am now and play it and enjoy it and talk to you about it to get you to try to play it too? 100% absolutely. Not every single game I feature on Unported Playlist is a game that I would add to my collection, but that doesn't mean that I don't think it's fun. I just think that as far as the fighting game is concerned, this is low B tier, but I love the graphical style, I love the soundtrack, and I've got a ton of nostalgia for this game, because as a kid, I loved it, and of course my tastes were not as discerning back then as they are now, but I just have such fond memories of loving this game, which is really weird because even as a kid I was not into superheroes. The farthest I ever went was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I guess they count as superheroes, but more like mutated terrapins, I guess. I do love how that character just flies in and basically drops missiles from their chest. It's weird, it's wacky, it's fun, it's just odd. What you'll see here, I'm going to start taking a lot of deaths because we're at the end of the game basically, and it's just going to get to the point where I only need to hit my opponent like 2 more times, but getting those 2 more hits is basically going to be impossible. So I sped it up to show you how long it took me and how many lives I lost to be able to finally beat the boss quote unquote of the game. It was so many, I think there was 5 credits in there, and all I did was use my team attack once it finally became ready to get to see the ending. And that is how difficult this game gets when you're at the end. And I do need to give the game a strike for being that difficult, because there's unfair difficult where it wants some extra quarters, and there's just screw you because that's why unfair. And Avengers and Galactic Storm definitely falls to the screw you because that's why unfair category. But I do love the ending. It's so cheesy. It's just like 4 different frames that have no animation, and then it says the real fight begins. And now you'll see we have the entire roster, including all of the opponent characters that we can play as, and now the game becomes a traditional 1 versus 1 fighting game. This mode is a lot more fun because the opponents aren't anywhere near as difficult. If you have a friend next to you and you want to play a B tier fighting game, this is going to be a ton of fun. You can learn the moves, play against each other, and that's where the game really does open up. But Avengers and Galactic Storm is one of those games. A, it's unported. B, I have fond memories of it. C, for its time and place, it looks really, really nice. I just wish they'd animated those backgrounds a little bit more, but it's one of those games. Download it, emulate it, play it, enjoy it for like 20 minutes, then you'll say you've played it and you can move on to the next thing. Short of that, I'll be back next Sunday with another episode of Unported Playlist. I'll have videos throughout the week as well, but leave me a comment down below. Have you played this game? Have you not heard of it before? Do you plan on playing it after the video? Hit like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.